Morning, folks. We're back live now on our morning show. Um, I wasn't around for a few days, so you may have missed some of the shows. So my apologies. Um, I actually had an awful dose of the flu. Um, so I'm just putting all our channels live. So all our channels are live now, which is fantastic. So my apologies. I wasn't around for last week. I wasn't well, so I'm back now doing a morning show. And here's a question for you this morning. If you're a business owner, how far would you go to save your own business? So, how far would you go to save your own business? Would you borrow from a money lender? So, there's a question for you now this morning. Would you borrow from a money lender to save your business? Now, many years ago, when I had a business that was closing down, we got hit by €500,000 worth of a bad debt. One client went bust, owing us £500,000. And because that happened, our bank did not like it. The bank that we have been using for a number of years and helped us do the management buy-in, all that type of stuff, and who at this stage was very happy with our progress, was getting monthly reports off us, and they were coming in every 2 months to check our books. They really liked what they saw. But this one customer going bust, owner's £500,000 causes huge damage. So the bank wanted to pull out, so we had to find a way to raise that £500,000 very quickly. So we raised £250,000 from Anglo-Irish Bank. Thanks to our one members of our board, they got us in there very quickly, and they looked at our books and they were happy with what they saw, and they said yes. So they gave us a loan, but we're still short £250,000 to £300,000 to bridge the gap of that loss of £500,000. But we were offered £300,000 by an accountant who we knew. I wouldn't call him a friend; he's more a colleague. So we are offered this £300,000 by this individual. But here was the stipulation. He wanted not only the £300,000 back within 6 weeks to 8 weeks, he also wanted another £300,000 on top of that. So he wanted £600,000 back within 8 weeks. Now, the business was very healthy. Bar this customer going bust, the business was very healthy. But I knew in my heart and soul, I knew there's no way we're going to be able to pay back £600,000 within 8 weeks. And then we missed that deadline, we'd have interest upon interest, and it would just get too much of a struggle. But we couldn't find any other bank to give us the balance of the money. So even though this person wasn't technically a money lender, I knew where he was getting the money from. And I knew he was going to be making about £250,000 on that money. So it was pure greed, absolutely pure greed. But I took the decision not to take that money. And even to this day, it was the right decision. Because even though I wanted to save the company and save the business, having to pay back £600,000 within 8 weeks was not going to be a runner. And I knew he'd want stipulations like if we hadn't paid it back within a certain period of time, he would take control of a certain portion of the company, and that would increase. And it would get to the stage where we kept missing deadlines. He would end up having a control and interest in the business. So the choice I had to make was take this money, South Sudan, how are you doing? Take this money and pay it back within 6 to 8 weeks, or let the company crash. And based on all the advice I got, I decided to let the company go. So I wasn't willing to go as far as borrow money off a money lender, even though he wasn't classed as a money lender, he was an accountant, to save the business. They saw a quick kill, that if we could pay it back, they were going to make £300,000 on a loan for 6 to 8 weeks. And I wasn't willing to do that. I just wasn't willing to do that. But then we had all the truck drivers and the haulage drivers and the coach drivers protesting about 2 weeks ago. on the motorways in Ireland and blocking all the entrance points. And on the first day, you can understand what they're doing. On the second day, yeah, they still want to make the voice heard. But on the third and fourth and fifth day, it got more of a power hungry thing. The power was going to the head because they had made their point and they did get concessions in the end. But it just shows you these were all individuals who had their own business and running their own companies. And they were trying to make a point, they're trying to save their businesses. They're trying to save the coach businesses, trying to save the haulage businesses. The farmers are trying to save their own farms and their own businesses. And that comes back to how far will you go to save your company? How far will you go to save your business? And it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one to answer. Different people will go different lengths to save their company. But when your business is in trouble, and your livelihood is in trouble, all you can think about is, how do I save it? How do I keep it going? How do I win more sales? How do I pay the next bill? How do I keep the lights on, the phone on? How do I pay that supplier in order to get product off them to give to my customers? And that's the life of being self-employed. It's an endless journey. It's an endless challenge every day and fight to keep things going. It's never straightforward. It's never as easy as people think it is. And when you start a business, you have aspirations of the whole thing going well. You have visions of the whole thing going well. You have visions of yourself growing the business. And maybe in 5, 10 or 15 years, selling that business and retiring to a good life. But for the majority of people, that doesn't happen. The 1 or 2 or 3%, yes, things go fantastic. They get through the tough times, the really tough times, and then someone buys the business off them, they sell the business, or something happens that allows them to liquidate that investment of time and money and effort. But it takes a while for that to happen. And as I said, only a small percentage of people does that happen to. Only a small percentage. It doesn't happen to every single person who has their own business. We wish it did. If it did, many of us would be very wealthy now and living that great life. But I know many people who work for themselves who are finding it very tough at the moment, extremely tough. Cost of living crisis, and not just cost of living crisis on their own stuff and what they're buying from suppliers and what they're buying from everywhere else, but Barcelona, hello from Kerry, Barcelona, I'm in Dublin, but they're also finding it on their own home front, feeding their own families and everything. It's costing them more money than ever, and they're struggling badly. Nobody wants to have huge bills. Nobody wants to have huge amounts of money to owe. Nobody wants the mortgage to go into arrears. Nobody wants that. And it's very hard sometimes to tell people that. Nobody wants that. But sometimes it happens. And it happens outside your control. Even though you work hard to keep the business going, even though you work hard to try and get money in, even though you work hard to try and keep it flowing, sometimes your customers have things that happen to them that's outside your control but affects your business. Maybe affects the money they owe you. Maybe affects the business they're going to give you. But it's outside your control. But you still feel like you should control it. But it's very hard to control it. And so that goes back to my original question. What would you do to save your own business? Would you borrow from a money lender? I didn't. I couldn't have borrowed that £300,000 to have to pay back 600 within the eight weeks. And as I said, I knew the business was strong. It was swinging over good cash flow. It was going in the right direction. But I knew by doing the figures in my head, by doing the figures on paper, by doing the figures on a spreadsheet, I just knew the business would not be able to afford to pay back that money. And even if I had taken that money with the hope of raising more money to pay that back, I would now have had to raise £600,000, not 3, to replace that 300,000. So I knew it wasn't going to happen. I just knew it wasn't going to happen. And that's why I had to let the business go. And it broke my heart. I nearly cost me my life to let that business go. It really did. Because I felt hard done by, that we had given a fantastic service to this customer, looked after them really well, and went over and above what we usually do. And then believing that company was backed by a UK company, which they were, and believing from what I've been told, that UK company would keep funding this customer. But that wasn't true. So when they went bust, owing us €500,000, it was a huge hit, a massive hit. And might have been for 5 million. It was a huge hit. And because we lost the confidence in our bankers, it was very hard then to find other banks to take us on board. So it was a huge, huge hit. So you need to look at your own business today. And where this question came up from was, I was doing a workshop, and the management team were talking about what would happen if different things happen in the business, that maybe they couldn't save the business. And that's where the question came up: what would you do to save your own business? How far would you go? What is the red line you will not cross? And everyone has a red line. And the real question for you is, what is your red line? So thanks for joining me this morning. And as I said, I was off for a week or so. Hope you enjoyed the show this morning. If you want to follow up on any of the stuff we've done, it's all on our podcast. We have a lot of stuff on podcasts. Just put my name in, Mark Bays, wherever you get your podcast. And also, you go onto our YouTube channel, Mind's Eye Education. We've a load of stuff up there, massive load of stuff. We put up a great interview today, and it's all free. So do hit the like button, do hit the follow button, and then you get access to all that stuff free of charge. We have 50, 60 shows up there with a load of information about business and talking to different people that I know will help your business. I know will help you. And I hope it will help you. So have a great day. Fantastic day out there today on April 21st. So have a great day today. And I hope to talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.